Welcome to the Talking Single podcast, a podcast featuring 4 strong, single and successful women raised in Lagos, now living in London. Each week, we share our stories and experiences about being women, navigating life, love and everything in between. We address stereotypes, misconceptions, and even bust some myths about singlehood. Oh, and we do all that with a good dose of humor and a whole lot of style. I'm Ribi, the cautious romantic, and I'll be this week's host. Joining me are the other talking single ladies. Rasheeda, she's single, ready to mingle, her heart is newly reopened for love. Keysha, the consciously uncoupled, unromantic, wondering what the fuss is all about. And Crystal, the recovering love addict, now happily single. Our podcast is called Talking Single simply because it's what we do and who we are. Enjoy. Hey everyone, I'm Ribi, hosting today's episode of the Talking Single podcast. With me as usual are my girls, Keysha, Rasheeda and Crystal. How are you ladies doing today?
All good, hey.
Hello,
everyone.
I'm good.
Nice.
Thank you.
Lovely. Today we are taking on the very serious topic of mental health, especially among Black women. Before we begin, I must stress that we are speaking from our experiences only. Please seek the help of a qualified, licensed mental health professional if you need to speak to someone. Let's begin. According to an England government survey of mental health and well-being, 29% of Black women experienced a common mental disorder like anxiety, depression, or obsessive-compulsive disorder in the past week. And that is the highest rate for women across all ethnic groups. In other words, amongst white women, mixed race, women of Asian backgrounds, Black women experience a higher incidence of a common mental disorder. Ladies, let me check in. Are you surprised to hear this? And why do you think Black women have a higher incidence of mental health issues?
I'm not surprised. I think when it comes to mental health, we don't, as a community, Black people don't like to talk about it. It's almost a taboo. We're less likely, probably, I don't have any stats for this, but I'm just saying, we're less likely to seek help. We're less likely to go to therapy. I think we mentioned this in the self-love episode. And so, yeah, I'm actually not surprised.
Rasheeda, what about you? Surprised?
No, not at all, actually. As in, I even thought the number would even be higher than that. Because as Crystal just mentioned, we just don't talk about mental health or therapy or any of those things because of that stigma that is associated with anything mental health related.
Crystal, I'm sorry, Keysha, what about you?
I'm not surprised at all. One, because as a community, we do not properly acknowledge mental health as much as we should. And also women, as women, trying to be the hearth and heart of the home, we do take on a lot of responsibilities. And we do a lot of things that are purportedly our roles without any outlet or any way of, or any help sometimes. So This doesn't surprise me at all.
I know we're talking about mental health for Black women, but I wonder whether the numbers for Black men would even be higher.
It's not
higher. And actually, interestingly, for men, there isn't a difference whether it's Black or white men. The percentage of mental health disorder is fairly similar. So two things are of interest. One, women suffer a higher percentage of common mental health disorders in totality. Now, it might be that within that, you find that men suffer more from a particular kind of mental health disorder. But generally, women experience a higher percentage. And amongst women, Black women experience an even higher percentage.
Understood.
And so something for us to think about. Why do we think Black women experience a higher incidence? Any thoughts?
We just don't speak up, isn't it?
Yeah.
We're just, for whatever reason, we just we just think, we just have to suck it up and carry on.
Yeah. Keysha, you wanted to say something?
I also think that because women are in society, we are one of the lowest rungs in the ladder. It's so that also has a toll on us.
On Black women.
On Black women, yeah.
You guys all make really valid points. And, when you looked at that survey, the reasons why Black women suffer disproportionately, tend to be very complex. And till today is still not fully understood. What was clear was that race did play a part in this experience. And we will talk about why a little bit later. But before then, I did want to back up to that 29%. It's very really revealing. So in other words, 1 out of 4 of us, right? 1 out of the 4 of us has experienced some form of mental health. If you take that 29% to be the case, one out of 4 of us has experienced some form of mental health. And how do we talk about it and deal with it? We said earlier on that we often don't. We tend to keep it to ourselves. So we're going to be very bold and brave today, ladies, and we're going to start that conversation right now. Let's have a proper check-in with ourselves. And please, obviously, say what you feel comfortable saying. Rasheeda, I'm going to start with you. Have you experienced anxiety, depression, or any form of mental health? Please share your experience if you feel comfortable to do so.
Okay, so I think, at the time when it all started, I didn't know what was wrong with me. But eventually, I think it was a slight form of depression. But it came about because of a boy. Big surprise. So I think for whatever reason, it was just a relationship that just ended out of the blues. And I'd been leaning on my friends for so long, like just moaning and groaning and being upset about it. Then, of course, there's only so much you can talk to your friends about it. Then I realized with a lot of my friends and my family, I was putting up this brave front, but underneath it all, I was cracking. And I remember the day I realized I needed help. I was sat at my desk. And I'm sure we've all had that feeling when you're asleep and you're falling, then you wake up. But I had that feeling and I was wide awake and I couldn't shake it. So I had to get up and go for a walk. And it was at that point I realized, okay, I couldn't pretend to myself I was okay. So I just went online, still looking for someone to talk to. And I found a therapist and I spoke to him for, I think 8-9 months. Then it was during all of that, because I didn't even know what was wrong with me then. All I knew was I was tired of pretending I was okay. But I guess friends and family couldn't relate. They just assumed, you guys broke up ages ago, you should be fine, or pretend to be fine. But the therapist slowly helped me recognize what was wrong with me, give me coping strategies on how to kind of deal with when I had like all these depressive episodes. Eventually I think he just said, well, it was slight depression, and slowly talking through it, using all of the coping methods and stuff he gave me, somehow I just eventually slowly snapped out of it. It wasn't a quick thing, it was months and months and months. But
wow.
Well, it was because of a boy.
Still a very difficult experience. Thank you for sharing and telling us how you coped with it. Crystal, I'll come to you next. Would you like to share your experience?
Yeah, it was also because of a boy. But one thing I've realized, that my most destructive, maybe crazy behavior comes because of boys. Hence why I am a love addict. But anyways, it was, it wasn't even that he broke up with me. It was just some weird behavior. There was another girl involved. And I just snapped that night. I just snapped. And I got home and I was crying and crying and crying and crying. And then this has never, ever happened to me before. And it hasn't happened to me since. But I just felt like there was a darkness just sucking me in. I remember all the curtains were closed. I switched off my phone. I just felt horrible, and I cannot till today explain to you. It just felt to me like darkness was literally sucking me in, and I just had a whole day of it, just feeling that darkness, just crying. And then I woke up the next morning and I'm like, I never, ever, ever want to feel like this ever again for anyone. And I remember I went to church and I snapped out of it. But it wasn't the nicest of feelings. But for me, I was just like, ooh, this is a horrible feeling and this could go on forever. I didn't seek help, but I just knew that I never want to feel like this again.
Wow. What is interesting to me is you both experienced this kind of, I don't know, anxiety, slight depression in very different ways. One was abrupt and sudden, and then it seemed like it was over, as you've explained it, Crystal. But Rasheeda, yours required a period of time to come to terms and move on. Is that how you would describe it, or would you say it differently?
Yeah, so for me, it was the feeling of like when I got to the lowest point. It didn't happen overnight. It happened over a couple of months. Yeah. Then when I got to the point where I realized, okay, this is the lowest of the low, I stay sick. One thing I did not mention was when the day I Googled and I was looking for therapists, I guess that's another thing. I did not tell any of my friends that I'm looking for a therapist or anything. There was this, at the time, sense of shame when you're thinking, okay, I need a therapist. It must be a year or two later when I started telling my friends, actually, I have been talking to a therapist. I am an advocate for therapy now. Everybody that would care to listen, I tell them, anything wrong with you, if you think you need a therapist, just do it. One of the responses I got from my cousin was, can't believe you're talking to a therapist. You're going to air all your family and your friends' dirty laundry with a therapist. And I was like, and then the person is not there to judge. He was there to just help me sort out all the jumble of emotions internally.
Yeah. Wow. And you touch on some of the things that I think stop women from sharing when they are getting really kind of overwhelmed. That this feeling of people will say, why are you sharing your dirty secrets with, or your family secrets with somebody, and all of that stuff. Yeah. And that can stop us from.
Yeah. Or why don't you talk to your friends? But one thing I realized is when you going through stuff like that and you're talking to your friends give emotional responses. Ideally, I feel like you sometimes need someone who is not emotionally invested in you. That'll give true unemotional responses and tips that you need at that time. Sometimes your friends, as much as they love you, would only reinforce that sadness. Well, that's what I found anyway.
Crystal, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I also wanted to say that there's some people that will go through the worst heartbreak and not break down. And for people like that, they can't understand why a man would, or that kind of situation would lead to depression. And I feel like that's one of the reasons why it's hard sometimes to talk to friends, because I know times when I've been heartbroken over something that some people think is nothing. They've been like, oh, just forget it, it's fine, just leave it. And just really abrupt and just end it where you're trying to express how you're feeling, which is why therapy is good, because you can express those emotions without anyone cutting you off and saying, oh, just forget it.
Yeah, I know. Keysha, let me come to you. Would you like to share your experience?
So I think I find it difficult because to even sometimes understand what depression actually is. And I have to say that a lot earlier in my life, I actually never thought it was a thing. I guess, now that there's more awareness around it, I do understand and can recognize when people are going through it. I can offer support. I know when to just be there. But it's something I find very difficult to recognize in myself. So I can't actually categorically say if it's something I felt or not, probably because I also have steps to always pick myself back up. And so I can't say that I have any personal experience, but I can say I deeply understand what it entails and what the impact is.
Okay, thank you for sharing. I mean, ladies, thank you for sharing your personal experiences. I mean, I would say that I certainly experienced high anxiety about when I lost my job. And it was a very difficult experience for me for two reasons. One, being out of control. The idea of being out of control for me is like one of my biggest fears and triggers. So not knowing where, financially, where I was going to kind of live and how I was going to kind of navigate, I would wake up with panic attacks. And I would be freaking out, and I'll be crying and laughing, and I wouldn't understand why. At the time, I didn't even know what it was until I was actually talking to my coach, and I was saying I was experiencing this, and he said, that sounds like you are going through anxiety and you're having panic attacks. And I was like, oh, wow, okay, this is clearly out of control and I need to deal with it. At the time, I didn't actually I didn't seek professional help. I just spoke to my coach, who was a licensed counselor. And so we worked through it together at the time. And it kind of helped because it was really to do with work and being out of control of aspects of my life. And that really helped. I think the second reason that made it really hard was people didn't understand why I was feeling the way I was feeling at the time. A lot of people said to me, you should be thankful that you've got your redundancy money. Go and live your life. Didn't understand this point about being out of control and how it affected me as a human being. And it got to a point where I actually stopped talking to my friends about it because I just felt like they didn't get it. And I know they were being really supportive and helpful at the time, but it really wasn't helping. And so I decided to just put on a front, which often we do as women. When we see people are not kind of understanding where we're coming from, we put on this front that everything is okay. And we kind of hide the issue separately and try to deal with it in other ways. And all of these things kind of adds to the burden and actually prolongs the issues that we are trying to deal with.
You said something about maintaining a front. Sometimes I feel all to add to that is when you put up that front, you don't want the pity. Because sometimes the pity just drags you even lower than you feel already. So you're like, I feel terrible. And someone is pitying me, and it's just a cycle of pity.
Yeah. And there is the side of pity, but there was also for me at the time a little bit of shame that, why am I going, I see people progressing and I'm stuck in this place. So it was really, really not a bad feeling. You just really didn't want to be the center of pity, the center of discussion, the one with the problem. You just want to be seated with all of that. You just wanted to kind of move on and be happy-go-lucky, normal. Yeah, you put your big girl pants on and you want to kind of face the world.
Sorry to interrupt.
Go on, please. Go on.
And not, at the time I was getting to the lowest point. I think one thing that made me realize it is there's this image that was going around Instagram at the time. It was a girl, it was a cartoon, a girl, she had a mask on with a smiley face, but under this smiley face mask was somebody crying. And I remember sending that to my therapist, like that was at the first session, like, I don't know how to explain how I'm feeling, but this image is exactly how I'm feeling, because I had the happy face with everyone, but inside I was crying and
crying. Oh gosh, that is heartbreaking. And our hope in sharing these stories is that if you're listening, you find it helpful and encouraging, and hopefully can reach out to a trusted friend or a professional to share what you are going through and not kind of keep it to yourself. And we will talk a little bit more about this later. But let's go back to the point of why race plays a role in the higher incidence of mental health issues among Black women. So I was reading an article a while back, and I really wish I could find the source of this article. I can't, but it really spelled some of the issues out so concisely for me. It talked about how navigating life as a Black woman in the UK is fraught with so many things. There's the overt and covert racism that you have to deal with. There is the discrimination, the daily microaggressions, the dealing with being overlooked, undermined, judged very harshly, being reminded that you don't meet Western beauty standards, that people rarely see you rarely see the full range of your humanity expressed in the media. You're often, Black women are often Jezebel or the best friend, or the next door neighbor, very one-dimensional expressions in the media. You have to deal with all of those things. And then at work, there is the added pressure to be twice as good as your white counterparts, even though it may only get you half as far. And then you have the weight of representing your race in the office because you're often the only Black person in that building.
Yeah.
And then you don't even get the luxury of being angry or expressing your pain or your vulnerability because you do not want to be seen as the emotional, angry, aggressive Black woman. So when you have to deal with all of these things, policing your behavior, diminishing yourself, no wonder you're exhausted. No wonder it has an emotional toll on you as a woman or on us as women. I just really resonated with that article when I read it. And so I want to ask you ladies, have you experienced some form of anxiety, stress, depression stemming from navigating work as a Black woman? Crystal, let me start with you.
I wonder who hasn't. I'm just trying to think who hasn't.
Yeah.
I remember when I was a junior, I was working in this place. I won't mention where. Most of my roles have been in the charity sector. And there was an issue where this guy swore at me. So my manager swore at me. And I at the time, I was just like, okay, this is crazy. And I was just going to end it there. But someone went to report it. And this just became a big issue. But it ended up with him leaving, with him being suspended. Good. And then there was so much work on the team. But then his manager was no better than he was. So It was around Christmas time, and we were doing 10 times more than we were doing. There were people on the phone screaming at us. And I remember a friend of mine came to see me at work for lunch. And I didn't know that I had all these pent up emotions, and we sat down and I just burst into tears.
Oh, wow.
And I was just like, I don't even know why I'm sad. I'm just sad. And then I realized that some of my other colleagues were actually feeling the same way. But in the new year of that year, things actually then came to a head where this guy actually started bullying us.
Wow.
And I remember he would come up behind me and my heart would be beating really fast. And so I remember I called my sister and I was crying, and my sister said to me, hey, no job is worth crying for. And I was like, actually, you're right. And I handed in my notice the next day.
Wow.
Good move, because that was a toxic environment for you.
Definitely. Keysha, why don't you share your experience?
So in this experience, definitely at work, affinity bias is a thing. And this is where the perception of Black women being voiced, not being heard, getting ignored in meetings, or you'll say something and then you'll find that somebody's actually repeating exactly what you just said in a different way. And you're wondering, but I literally just said that. Or, you know, your work not being acknowledged, or people walking on eggshells around you. So, oh, I didn't pronounce your name properly, or you know, I'm so sorry, I keep trying, you know, or everybody trying to remind you that they've got a black friend or they've worked with somebody black before. And
that thing annoys the hell out of me.
And these things tend to happen specifically in the work environment, and they do have a negative toll. And you do find there's some people that just don't like you for no reason whatsoever. And it is all stemmed in racism, but sometimes the people will swear down that they're not racist because maybe, you know, because nobody likes that word, but it's still...
Well, they're not racist though, because they've sat next to a black person at lunchtime.
You know, or they've worked with a black person, you know, and but me as a person, I am feeling these negative atmosphere, and I'm feeling these things, and I'm working in this environment on a day-to-day basis with these people, you know. And when you're in meetings during the Black Lives Matter in the summer, and somebody's telling you that, you don't really understand what the fuss is all about, because they just don't get it, because they just don't want to. You know, what do you say? Where do you even start? And this is people you're working with on a day-to-day basis. Or you go to another office and the person's telling you how all these black people are blocking, you know, are going out and spreading the virus. And you're like, I'm right here. What are you exactly saying to me? What are you know, in that particular instance, I just put my headphones on, because what response am I meant to make to that? I mean, to me, that's a direct attack on my person. And I'm here sitting in this work environment with you.
From that fight, though, I would have expected you to go claws out at the person.
No, but this is a manager. What am I meant to tell him? This is a manager in a work environment. I have bills to pay.
And these are the things that put pressure on black women, because how you navigate those are, do you fight and then you're out of a job and you have to deal with the consequences of that? Do you keep quiet and deal with the emotional consequences of that, because they will have a toll whether we accept it or not? You know, how do we navigate and discuss and deal with those kind of situations? But also, how do we deal with the effect it has on our mental health? Because as we're talking about these instances, the emotions is still there in all our stories. It's not as if it's been, you know, it's now, oh, it's gone and I'm fine and I'm moving on. These things are still part of our psyche. And they're still part of our emotional and mental experience. And that's kind of what makes it so difficult, but also means that we have to be very conscious of our mental health as we navigate work. The emotional toll of navigating work, which we've just discussed, is one of the pathways to the mental strain and stress that result in women experiencing mental health issues, right? But these aren't the only ones. These aren't the only circumstances that lead to mental health. You know, Rasheeda, Crystal, you talked about yours stemming from a relationship, but there must be others that also come to mind. Maybe let me start with Keysha. Can you think of other circumstances that come to mind that can lead to mental health issues for Black women?
So one of them is actually generally being a Black woman in society. I'm not sure if I've mentioned this before, but being a Black woman in society, dating in society, trying to live your life, just walking down the street, you are perceived in a certain way. If you go into a shop and you raise your voice, you become the angry Black woman. Everybody's watching you. If you go into a shop and pick things and drop things, you know, like everybody else does, you find eyes on your back watching every step you make. If you're two people in the queue, people find it very easily just to cut in front of you. I'll never understand that. Why you're just invisible. They just cut right in front of you. Or if you're walking down the road and there's a white person walking right towards you, they always expect you to move. And I've never understood that. Like, we're invisible, we're not worthy. What are we, the dirt under your shoe? I do not understand why society perceives Black women as irrelevant. And you're walking every day in this truth, because you get it at work, you get it on the street, and anywhere you go, shops, restaurants, it's just a proper thing. You're sexualized. All Black women must know how to twerk. All Black women must speak in a false high American accent. You know, go girl, yeah girl, what's up girl? You know, that's
a terrible impression, by the way.
But you know what I mean? I mean, that is a stereotype that, you know, has been portrayed about us. And that is what the perception is. And all those people thinking, oh, I have a Black friend, all they're trying to say is, I know somebody who knows how to twerk and has an accent. Because that's what they're saying. That is what's in their mind.
So,
you know.
So the just being a Black woman is enough to drive you to have mental issues, basically. You know, how you deal with all of that is quite hectic. Crystal, what are your thoughts?
There's some other circumstances like childhood trauma. Like if you've been raised in a toxic home, and how you grew up, all of those also have also affect your mental health. And another thing which isn't quite relevant, is relevant but not relevant to this, is that just a thought that came to me is that in our Black community, we don't see mental health until it's literally bipolar. So if you're crying and you're saying, oh my God, I'm tired, they're like, oh, just get up. But when it's bipolar, then they're like, okay, yeah, that is mental. And I think that's one of the reasons why there's a problem, because maybe it could have been nipped in the bud before it got to that stage, but people don't see it until it gets wild.
Yeah. Rasheeda, what about you?
So there are two things I was thinking of, actually. I guess from an African background, not talking about your feelings is one thing. We're not very emotional. No one really, well, especially with parents, you're never ever that emotional. Okay, now, for instance, most Nigerians I know never say I love you to their parents, or their parents never said it to them. There was this Instagram thing where Black kids made videos of them saying I love you to the parents and recording the parents' reactions. Most of the parents were like, what do you want? Why are you saying that to me? Only very few actually said, oh, I love you too, because just something we never did, talking about your feelings. So you're less likely to be in touch with your emotions, and then you stifle them and it just spirals. The second one is underlying health conditions. So if you have issues with your thyroid gland, for instance, you have, or like postpartum depression. There was this thing with what a famous podcaster, and I think she mentioned something along the lines that Black women are more likely to die in childbirth, and they get the worst level of postpartum care. And for Black women who is suffering from postpartum depression, if the stats say she's less likely to get the help she needs, then she just goes around being unhappy or being depressed for longer.
Yeah. There's a lot that can lead to this, and there's a lot that obviously Black women have to navigate when it comes to mental health. But let's then move on to talk about solutions. Thankfully, there are solutions available to us. The UK National Health Service website, which is www.nhs.co.uk, has a number of resources available, which we would encourage people to go and look at. It gives a few sites and advice for us. It says, try talking to friends that you trust, a family member that you trust, a mental health professional or a therapist or a counselor. They also suggest contacting Samaritans, which is a non-profit organization that you can talk to You can reach them at samaritans.org, or you can call them if you're in the UK on 116123, or you can email them at joe@samaritans.org. You can also consider peer supports, which is where people use their experience to help each other. And you can find out more about peer supports on the Mind website. So that's mind.org.uk. There are also some online resources specifically for Black women, which are worth checking out. There is Black Minds Matter, which is an organization that tries to connect Black people with professional mental health services across the UK. They have a fund that goes towards covering the cost of these services, and you can find them at blackmindsmatteruk.com. There's also Therapy for Black Girls. It's a community and a podcast on Black women's mental health. I happen to follow, and I find their advice really useful. And you can find them on the hashtag Therapy for Black Girls. A final one that I would share is the Black, African, and Asian Therapy Network, or BAATN. It's the largest community of counselors, psychotherapists of Black, African, Asian, and Caribbean heritage in the UK. And they have a wide directory of therapists of color practicing across the UK, many who have moved online during the pandemic. So you can still reach them, and they can be found at baatn.org.uk. There do seem to be a lot of resources available today. If you just Google, you will find. And Rasheeda, you talked about, going to a therapist when you were experiencing your mental health issues. But, that seems to me to be more the, not the norm, really. We don't find, as Black people, comfortable going to therapy or saying that we are going to therapy.
Yeah, and there's something as well, even if you decide to go to therapy, finding a therapist that can relate to you.
Yeah.
Because if few of the issues I eventually unpacked to my therapist, he was actually Nigerian, were things that I didn't have to explain to him, and because he just understood it because he was a Black Nigerian professional. But if you were someone that did not share my ethnicity or my ethnicity, there's some things that he would just be like, I don't understand why that is a thing. Can you explain it? But it just made it easier to find a Nigerian therapist.
So, Crystal, let me turn to you. Why do you think that when it comes to dealing with mental health issues, as Black people, we don't consider things like therapy?
I think, as I said earlier, there's a taboo. I definitely know that in Nigeria, which is where we come from, our community, there's a big taboo surrounding mental health. So that's why a lot of people don't consider therapy. And also, I know of someone who was spiraling, and she was given drugs, and people were saying to her, don't take them. If you take them, you're going to be taking them for the rest of your life. But, and I'm not speaking as a medical practitioner, but I have heard that sometimes when you have a mental health problem, it's an imbalance in your brain. Therefore, medicine can help correct that. Yep. So people shouldn't be scared of taking medication, shouldn't be scared of being hospitalized. A lot of people who have gone into hospital for their mental health issue have avoided committing suicide or doing harm to themselves and other people. And so these are the things we need to consider. I will have to mention that a lot of people seek spiritual help as well. Yeah. And I honestly think that there is something to be said for that, because spirituality does give you comfort, does bring positivity into it. But I think people should always consider a balanced view, as in, yes, go seek your spiritual help if you find that helps you, but don't forsake therapy. Don't, if you need medication, take it. If you need to be hospitalized, go into hospital, and don't feel ashamed. There is a big taboo, and I think there's a lot of work to be done in our community to ensure that it isn't.
Yeah.
But what I found with spirituality and the spiritual help is most times when you have those sort of conversations, they're like, God forbid you're not going to go into hospital. God forbid it's not your portion. God forbid it's the enemy, it's the devil, it's Satan, and all of those things. Sometimes I feel my own little world is when you're overly reliant on these spiritual advisors, it comes to at the detriment of medical and scientific help. I'm not saying, I'm spiritual and somewhat religious. I will always pray to God and ask for God's guidance. However, I feel like we should be more aware that sometimes the advice from spiritual helpers negates the need, or they say negates the need for science and medicine.
When I say spiritual help, I'm saying the one that comforts you as a person. Okay. I'm not saying go and seek advice from anyone.
Oh, right. Okay.
What I mean is, sometimes you find that comfort, that peace from spirituality. That's what I'm speaking about. I'm not saying, especially traditional African churches are very into God forbid that's not your portion. I'm not talking about that.
Oh, right. Okay.
I'm talking about the inner peace that you can find from spirituality.
Oh, right. Okay. So I misunderstood that. So what I was saying is the traditional, where they'd be like, it's not your portion. God forbid it's Satan and all of those things.
Okay. Keysha, what about you? What do you think?
I don't know why therapy isn't considered. In fact, I have to be honest, the very first time I ever considered therapy as an option was when Rasheeda was speaking out about it. I think if you remember...
Really? I influenced you positively. Oh my God.
Yes, sweetie. Yes, you did. So, although
you're welcome,
I would, and I have to admit, I still haven't done it, but I do definitely agree that, I guess, in our society, it's considered the stigma that, if you have to go to therapy, then something's wrong with you. Where what I'm learning now is that sometimes you can just have an independent person to speak with, someone outside your circle, someone that you can talk to, and they can give you an unbiased, independent view, someone that you can have a safe space with. And I think we rely on friends and family a lot, but I think sometimes talking to a stranger about, without any judgment, is probably the
Rapid fire.
It didn't want to rapidly finish. Sorry about that. Sorry about that, Keysha. I'm going to let Keysha finish what she was saying because I thought it was really important.
Yeah, I was just saying that it's good to speak with somebody who's not going to have any judgment.
Yeah.
Someone that you can feel safe with, someone that you're not afraid you're going to tell your friends or family or let the cat out of the bag in some way. And I think that gives you a certain sense of freedom. You can speak your mind. And yeah, I think it's needed. I still haven't done it, but I will. I'm sure one of the girls is going to kick my ass and make sure I do it. And I'm very happy that Ribi has read out all the details of how you can get therapy. So please
awesome. And so with that, we're going to move on to rapid fire. So I know people still want to talk about this. Maybe we need to do another episode. It is such an important discussion for women and for Black women. But we're going to move on because rapid fire rules apply. So ladies, I've got one question for each of you, and I am going to start with Crystal. I would like you to share one thing that you do to improve your mental well-being.
I practice mindfulness, and that consists of self-love, gratitude, and just being mindful. Yeah, that's what I do.
Okay. Rasheeda?
For me, I practice try to practice meditate every day. So I have this app that I log on to every day, and 20-30 minutes each day I just meditate, clear my mind, and chill out. Okay. At the moment I'm trying to do a 10-day streak, but I think I always fall off by day 6 or 7.
Don't worry, this time around you will do those 10 days. Don't worry.
Because you get a star for 10-day streak, so okay. I need that star.
Go girl, you'll do it. Keysha, what about you?
I walk. I've always walked. And I find that if I can't walk or I'm not walking, then I'm learning that then that means there's something wrong. Because I'm a morning person and I really just love to get out and breathe the air. If that makes sense at all.
Makes total sense.
Yeah.
For me, I pray. I read my Bible and I pray, and that for me kind of gives me the strength to move ahead. So ladies, that's our podcast for this week. To our listeners, hopefully you found it informative and helpful, in which case a positive review on Apple Podcast would be appreciated. If you've been affected by any of the topics we covered today, please reach out to a licensed professional or use any of the resources we've shared. Whatever you do, please speak to a trusted person. You don't have to go through your experiences alone. Help is out there. Till next time, stay safe. Take care. Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.
Thanks for listening to the Talking Single podcast. We hope you enjoyed this week's episode. To continue the conversation, be sure to follow us on Instagram with the handle @TalkingSinglePodcast. You can also follow us on Facebook and Twitter with the handle Talking Single. We are downloadable on Apple Podcast, Google Play, Spotify, and other podcast platforms. Don't forget to subscribe, leave us a great review, and of course share with your family and friends. We'd also love to hear from you, so leave us your comments or questions, and do remember to tag us on any posts with the hashtag Talking Single Podcast. Take care. See you next time, same place, same time.